Hey everyone. Welcome once again to the Astro Tarot Deep Dive. I'm Millie. I'm here with Susheela. We're so happy to be back. Um, you
It's
know,
been a while. It's been about 8 months, I think.
yes, it's been many months.
Yeah.
Um, just I guess life happened.
Yes.
Lots happened, and so now we're back to our regularly scheduled programming, which, we missed so much, and I know that's several of you have uh, asked each of us individually when this was coming back, so yay! We're so
Yay.
happy. We're so happy to be back today, and we are going to start off again, but this time we're going to talk about the Cancer solstice coming up on June 20th, 2025. Um, I don't know if you wanted to say something before we get started.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me to talk to people from so many different locations. And I was going to say they all, but we all are experiencing the same things kind of globally,
Mm.
despite being in different locations or having those feelings stem from a different circumstance, but
Yeah.
the themes are the same.
Mm.
And I think, when people get down and they get sort of beaten up by what's going on,
Mhm.
and they'll try and tune it all out, and they'll still say, well, I'm feeling this, but I don't even watch the news and I don't know why I feel like this because I'm not engaging in that stuff. But it's
Yeah.
there energetically, it's there, and we're going through this time where it doesn't matter if you're sleeping or you're awake or you're looking or you're not looking or you're having conversations. We are subject to the energies, and probably this is why, if you're somewhat empathic, this is why we came here at this time, and I think it's a good thing.
So too. Yeah. One of the things I've been saying, I think all of this year is what a time to be alive.
Yeah.
What a time to be alive. Anyone who is alive to see this right now. And I think especially if you follow work like the type of work that you and I do,
Mhm.
um, it's not none of it is just a coincidence, none of it is by accident. We have these tools that give us a different insight, and there's a gift in that, there's a point to that, whether it's because you share it with other people or it just serves as a different, way to help you navigate and guide you in this life, in this moment in time, and your place in this moment in time.
And to offer a perspective, I think that, I think in this time, more information doesn't necessarily give us accurate information or more knowledge or more wisdom. In fact, it's being used to manipulate us. Nobody knows what's real. And I remember, several years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, I was watching something about AI,
Mm.
and it's not where it is now. And they were just talking about it. And one of the things that this expert was saying was, it's not that people will believe the fake thing. It's that they will get so desensitized to it that they will no longer believe the real thing.
Mhm, mhm,
And
mhm.
I think we're in that place of unearthing the truth, and it's
Right.
very uncomfortable. And
Yes.
while you and I were talking just before, I just have to show this card because I was changing which deck I was going to use, and this 10 of Swords showed up, and I think this is maybe the way the collective is feeling a little
Right.
bit.
Yeah.
One too many knitting needles to the head, kind of vibe of pressure, the maximum saturation point, and the look on her face of just like, I can't input any more, like it's unbearable. And
Yes.
so we want to help relieve that
Right.
with some cosmic ibuprofen.
Right. That's a good way of putting it. That's cosmic ibuprofen. Yes. I love that. So, I mean, I think this is a great segue into talking about what Cancer energy is about, right? So, we have the Cancer solstice happening on Friday, June 20th, 2025. And one of this chart is filled with very poignant aspects. There is no aspect that you question or that that does it's almost like every character, every aspect plays a crucial role and is almost giving main character energy to
Yes.
that amplifies the way we're going to feel the solstice energy the next 3 months until we get to the Libra equinox. So keep in mind that everything we're talking about today, all of the themes are meant to unfold over the next 3 months, over the next season.
Mhm.
And so considering where we've come from the first 6 months of the year, right? Even just 3 months ago when we had the Aries equinox, which happened in March. March was such a pivotal month. And everything that has happened between March and now, there is integration happening,
Mhm.
but it's a different kind of integration and a different kind of integration that we're finding our way around. So, this Cancer solstice starts with the Sun in Cancer conjunct Jupiter in Cancer. On the one hand, this is probably one of the most beautiful aspects we can actually have in the zodiac, right? A Sun Jupiter conjunction, it's expansion of self, expansion of our light, expansion of how our ego, our human, our person is showing up in the world. But in Cancer, it does give that ibuprofen type of energy. How do I nurture myself? How do I heal myself? How am I around people that feel like family, that feel like home? How does my home feel? How is my home life? There will be a significant coming back home to self, a significant need for that, right? So check your moon sign and see, what does your moon need? What does your moon tell you about what you need to experience? Um, I think that a Sun Jupiter conjunction in Cancer, we haven't experienced that in 12 years because that's the last time that Jupiter was in Cancer. So, on a very practical perspective, I think when it comes to homes, people are probably going to be moving, manifesting homes, moving in and creating a home with, either roommates or people that feel like family, romantic relationships. On the other hand, this is Cancer energy on steroids, right? We're feeling all the feelings. We're questioning, what is home? What is homeland? What does it mean to me? Does it feel safe? Does it not? In the collective, I hope that what it means for the collective is, well, how might someone else be feeling, right? Perhaps more openness to compassion, more openness to wondering how the other person is feeling, where they might be coming from, what may have taught them to think or feel that way. So, over the next 3 months, we're going to be seeing a lot of those themes unfold.
Mhm. Well, I do miss this part of the
Yeah.
program where you say
Sure.
the thing and I'm sitting here going, "You can't believe the card I pulled." So, we have the 4 of Pentacles, and you can see a home there. It's part of her dress, and
Yeah.
she's standing behind this fence, a boundary of sorts, and she's very neat and elaborate. It's like a very fancy property, and there's little locks all along the chain.
Mhm.
Mm. The 4 of Pentacles, so pentacles are about material things. And on one hand, it can be frugal, it can be um, miserly, But
Mhm.
on the other hand, the Four of Pentacles is almost better than the Ten of Pentacles, meaning unlimited wealth, unlimited abundance. And
Mhm.
there is that feeling because it's a four connected to home, anything that's got four corners to it.
Mhm.
So it's foundational. But there's that feeling like what you say is like, well, it's mine, like this possession of ownership and what that means of being able to, have that feeling. When you feel it so strongly, then imagine how other people feel if they're in an opposite situation, like having that need for empathy, um, when we're holding really tightly to what's mine. I
Right.
own this. This is my home. Um, yeah, it's really requesting of us to see the opposite or see ourselves in the opposite. And then I have these three clarifying cards for that because it's a biggie. And I use the mushroom deck here, and we've got the Page of Pentacles, the Six of Pentacles, and the Ten of Wands. I can show you them, but they're very different than our regular tarot cards. And so it is talking about reciprocity in that space. So we have this massive, expansive Four of Discs or Four of Pentacles possibility, but then the reciprocity. It's not hoarding it. We're not hoarding. If you want more, there's a part that has to have an energetic exchange of how to give back.
Mhm.
And then otherwise there's a burden. There is this big burden that's accompanying that. And then there's other things on a very practical level about contractually, um, legally, authoritatively, all of that aspect is also connected with that home and ownership and wealth and wealth creation and that kind of stuff. So, it's like Spider-Man with, you know, great power comes great responsibility,
Right.
whatever. Yeah, it's got that vibe to it for sure.
Yeah, that's such a great point because anything with Jupiter and both the Sun and Jupiter, they're forces. The Sun is bright, it's masculine, it's I have arrived, right? And Jupiter expands anything it touches. Jupiter is a magnifying glass for the Sun in this case. So it's it's going to be very hot. When we really think about it, it's like boiling water if it's there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Lots of boiling water. So that responsibility factor, the potential for that there, and to really acknowledge it, I think what also kind of gives this potential of expansion and growth. Because another thing that the Sun Jupiter can do is like grandiosity, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's in the sign of Cancer, so it's maybe, holier than thou, kind of like, I am more spiritual than you are, like, kind of thing, right?
Well, and yeah, when you think of this, there's this
Right,
feeling of entitlement. Like I'm entitled to
right.
hoard
Mhm, mhm.
because, well, why? Well, because, well, we've always owned it. And we've always like, and then you think, well, no,
Right.
you haven't.
Right. Well, because yes, exactly.
But the way it's
That's it.
always been, or whatever reasons you can use to
Mhm.
justify. There's these universal laws, and they can't be swayed. You can dress them up however you want. At the
Right.
end of the day, the universal laws will always persist.
And in come the planet of karma, Saturn, right?
Sashaying across the stage. There you go.
That's it. That's it. So, this really beautiful, for the most part, with a lot of potential, Sun Jupiter conjunction is at a very tight square. We'll start with Saturn, which is also conjunct Neptune and Aries, but that square to Saturn in Aries, right? So here's the planet of karma, the planet of time, right? The planet that reminds us your actions have consequences. The planet, one of the slower moving planets of the zodiac, that says, yeah, you may have done that 30 years ago, 60 years ago, 90 years ago, however many years ago, but I always come back around. There are consequences to actions, there are consequences to decisions, right? And it's in Aries. So, on the one hand, great opportunity, Sun, Jupiter, what feels nurturing to my soul? What feels nurturing to me that I can begin? Um, how are my relationships? I think relationships have been through a lot. And I think that right now we are in a space where, wow, things actually feel okay, right? The square to Saturn is let's maintain that. Let's have
Uh-huh.
healthy boundaries because in Aries, we're starting a new chapter. We're in the middle of a transition, and this new chapter that we are transitioning into requires healthy boundaries,
Right.
requires unapologetic boundaries, requires that we are responsible for ourselves so that we can move into relationship from a much more self-possessed place, right? Where there aren't projections and expectations. Um, and so that can mean just moving slower through
Mm.
life. When we look at the Sun Jupiter conjunction, this is great for, if you have a big vision, you have a project, you have a business, but the square to Saturn is saying, okay, but what's your plan? The square, the square to Saturn can feel like, why aren't things moving as quickly? Why do I keep getting no's? Why is it so hard to get the loan? The no's are for your safety. The
Mhm.
no's are appropriate, and Saturn always looks out for us, and it's like the papa of the zodiac. It's placing healthy boundaries so that, you know, we don't run into a sharp edge,
Right.
right? And lots of karma right now. Lots of us seeing consequences of actions, decisions made in the collective, particularly. Saturn and Aries says no more. We're starting anew.
Mhm.
And Saturn being conjunct Neptune in Aries is we're saying no more, we're starting anew, but we don't know what that looks like because we don't have a frame of reference.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Nobody alive knows what that feels like, and that's the, unsettling but interesting thing. So for that, I've got the Seven of Swords, and it's interesting because in this deck, it's got this very snaky, devilish, deceitful,
Mm,
stealing the eggs, but she herself looks like a serpent, but she's made out of flowers. So it's traditionally, the Seven of Swords shows somebody stealing some swords, leaving some and stealing some from like a battlefield or something. And yes, it's deceitful or it's deception or thievery, but their intention is not to be deceitful for personal advantage. It's actually to prevent the people from fighting.
mhm,
And so they
mhm,
can only walk away with a certain number. And so when you think of that in this context, in a way, you have to be deceitful. In the same way, being an optimist means you have to be delusional to a
mhm,
certain extent, right?
mhm,
So not all deception is negative or
mhm,
evil or
mhm,
to have one over on somebody else for some nefarious reason. Sometimes you have to keep your plans a secret. Sometimes you have to not share all your big ideas with the world because it just reflects to other people what they're not doing or what they've chosen to not do, and you'll get a lot of negativity back. So
Mhm.
that deception isn't always a bad thing, so to speak.
Mhm.
You know, if your intentions are um, good, you know,
Right.
you're being deceptive, you know, there's several ways to look at it. Um, Now, in connection with that, I pulled out some clarifiers, and we've got the Seven of Wands, which is really interesting first with the Seven of Swords, because the Seven of Wands is very similar to having strong boundaries. It's a similar energy to the Nine of Wands, where you're like, this is the line I'm drawing, and that's that. The Seven of Wands is more like it brings you to reflect on what your values are and what you're not willing to waver on.
Yeah.
And that in connection with the other seven is kind of like it's okay not to provide all the information. It's okay if somebody says, "So what's new?" And you just go, "Oh, you know, this or that." Like you don't need to give all the stuff. And it's also okay when you are trying to find out information
Mhm.
to be a little of a sleuth, you know, to be a little detective,
Mhm.
to figure stuff out. So it has that. It, you know, it's not saying to steal or to take something that doesn't belong to you or any of that kind of stuff, because we've also got in connection with that the two tens, the 10 of cups and the 10 of swords. So like we've only done two cards here and we've gotten three of the tens. So tens come after the nine. We're in a number 9 year of snake year, shedding the skin, reaching the maximum. And the 10 is that transition point before it starts over at a one. So
Mhm.
it's not surprising to me at all that tens are showing up, because when you think about, you're talking about karma and Saturn, a lot of people will be like, well, I did all the right things. I am a good person. And why is it still not happening to me when that person's lying and cheating and stealing and they're living this happy life? It's just like, if karma hasn't bitten them yet, karma is letting them try and fix it. If they
Mhm.
don't fix it, they're going to get it.
Right.
Whereas if you're doing everything right, it allows you to really know that you deserve it and to get to that point of that you're not just doing something for an outcome, but you're doing this as a way of being. It doesn't
Yes.
matter if you end up with nothing, this is the right way to be.
Yes.
And so that is what I get out of all of these. Yeah.
Well, that's so beautiful. Yes, absolutely. I think there's something about this, again, this new era that we're entering where it's not about the ends justify the means. It's not about a particular outcome. It really is coming back to because the collective needs it, right? And I think we can see how our relationships need it. We need it about who am I or how am I as a person moving through the world?
Mhm.
Like, what decisions am I making? How am I treating myself and others? And there's a coming back to self that's different. There's a coming back to self where I've said it so many times. Saturn and Aries represents self responsibility,
Yeah.
right? And Neptune there is the reminder, self responsibility, also according to spirit, also according to your spirit, to your higher self, to your higher I, higher Neptune, I, Aries, right? It's almost like if Saturn represents the construction of a foundation for this new era, the construction of this foundation of this new era cannot come without a um a spiritual connection of some sort.
Yeah, I think that spiritual connection part is extremely potent as it's sort of like working its way up through the rubble. Um, Before we started recording, we mentioned that this all of these aspects, there's a lot of water and a lot of air, and yet there's a fiery feeling, and I likened it to lava, which is like
Right.
essentially bubbling mud.
Right.
And that's kind of this erupting kind of vibe. And, you know, people are losing a lot of things, like whether it's, imagined ideologies or beliefs, or they're losing physical,
Mhm.
tangible things. At the end of the day, what are you left with?
Right.
You're left with what's inside of you, which cannot be taken away. So if you build that part up, this is the opportunity to be like, whatever, if I'm vapor, if I'm ether, if I'm a thought,
Yeah.
what am I?
Mhm. Mhm. There's a redefining of self right now that, to your point, because we have lost so much, which I think is so much of what Saturn and Neptune and Pisces have represented.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's like the coming back to the essence of self and n- deciding deciding who am I? How do I want to walk through this life? So this very powerful Saturn Neptune conjunction that is such a part of our lives, not just over the next 3 months, but particularly over the next 3 years. Um, again, shaping us, shaping our foundation, is creating a sextile to Pluto, currently retrograde in Aquarius during the solstice. This is this is powerful. Pluto in Aquarius represents the new era. Pluto in Aquarius represents like the individual really seeing themselves as part of the collective, right? So I think one of the biggest examples of this is on social media where people are really coming out and speaking about what they're seeing in the world and understanding like uh you know, feeling either like they're seeing themselves in certain people. Again, that factor of how must they be feeling? Like this is how it's affecting them. So Pluto in Aquarius is the light and the shadow of the collective. And so the sextile to Saturn and Neptune is how is that reflected in me and how am I reflected in them? So I think there's great potential for more community. Um, Strong community. Saturn connection to Pluto, such a powerful combo, especially in a sextile. I mean, any combo with Pluto and Saturn is forceful. There's a lot of potential there that grows over time. We have two very slow moving planets connecting at a sextile over time. And
Hmm.
each action matters. I think at a personal level, again, another aspect that supports projects, that supports dreams. But here's the thing, we're coming out of the era where, make $1 million in 8 weeks, right? Solve your lifelong traumas in steps 1 through 10. It's no, get very real with this.
Yeah.
This requires commitment, Saturn. This requires intense focus, Pluto. And so, what this gives the opportunity to do is to not be so distracted by BS. That doesn't mean don't pay attention to what's happening in the world, because that will become nearly impossible. Understand that what's happening in the world is important, but BS. And so this is a major calling back to self where we'll see it in our relationships, right? If we get very personal with this, I think if there is one thing that I think this will do is it will make people less tolerant of accepting certain behavior,
Hmm.
right? I think it will allow for people to be more confident, healthier boundaries. Um, and that has a flip side too, because it can lend itself for like hyper individualism.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
that's an interesting sextile.
it is, and the fact that you say that too, it's interesting because I would put a warning label on the
Mm,
how can you say this? The feelings that you think you're having based on how you felt them before may not be how the feelings actually are now. So what you have to be open to what is actually BS. Like,
right,
throw it all away.
right,
Throw all your preconceived ideas away so that you can actually accept that some things that you really believed in are actually BS.
right.
I think
Yes.
is kind of the thing. Throw away your preconceptions, throw
Yeah.
away what you want to be right, what you want to be true, and then you can actually move forward. So it's very interesting because there's these in this aspect I see a lot of dualities where in a certain way we've been saying to people, not just us, I mean, you know, everyone, the collective has been saying we're moving away from the me and the I.
Mhm.
We're becoming collective, and yet in that framework it's been, as long as it's this though, not any of those things.
Yes.
It's like it needs to be inclusive, but only of this. I mean, it's very 1984. Like, we're all equal. It's just some of us are more equal. That kind of thing that you
Yeah.
know George Orwell was saying. Like, we're living in it and we don't even realize it. So here we have abundance. So the Nine of Cups, and when you think about, when you're saying, 12 steps to, manifesting or whatever, this is it. This is the abundant card. Like, you just manifest, just jump through all the hoops, check all the boxes, and, at the end of August, you will have manifested a small fortune.
Right,
And it's your birthright. And while that is true,
right,
we are unlimited, abundant beings.
right.
Within that, there's a very complex game
Yes,
at play. And so we've got
yes.
three major arcanas to clarify that, which means these are big, overarching, life changing kind of energies. So we have the Hermit, the Wheel of Fortune, and the Devil,
Wow.
all clarifying that. So when you think about that, there is this the hermit going back in to reflect, not just to isolate but to reflect, because
Mhm.
we had the hermit energy at the beginning of June, the end of May, and it was really about that reflecting energy, not isolating, but reflect, and then
Mm,
you emerge with wisdom. So
mhm.
it's not just going, it's too much out there, I'm gonna go and hide in my cave. It's like, woo, there's a lot out there. Let me go in where by myself I can figure it out and assess my feelings and my thoughts and my programming and my intuition, and then come out with a better way of understanding. And
Mhm.
then the Wheel of Fortune, meaning that, yes, this time is extremely fortuitous if you go in with an open mind, ready to accept abundance.
Mhm. Mhm.
One of my favorite sayings of all time is, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So
Mm,
information might come to you and it's coming from a source that you dislike or
mhm.
you don't think is good, or you think a person is horrible, you know,
Mhm.
black
Mm,
and white. Like, it's like, this is this, this is that.
mhm.
It's not the way it is in reality. Things are very nuanced. So we're in this time where it's like, take the information, be neutral. If you don't fight so much at the beginning, it's much easier to show up with a changed mind after. But if you
Mm,
if you rush in with "Rah, rah, 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 rah," and then when you reflect and go, in your hermit phase, sit there and go, that's wrong, but I can't go back and tell the people that I was wrong because I made such a stink about it and called everybody stupid. So that's harder. And that's where this devil energy comes in of like sticking with something, demonizing something or someone without actually going through the process. Like when we want to uncover the BS, we need to uncover it within ourselves first.
Mhm.
And it's going to be a lot easier to uncover the BS that's out there. And we are the hardest ones to, we trick ourselves more than we trick anyone else, I think. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great point because the potential for like intolerance is there. Again, Pluto and Saturn connected together are a force. It can be like an impenetrable force.
mhm,
Um, when you look at anyone who has strong, Pluto Saturn connections, that person is
rigid.
rigid, exactly. And then you add the fact that these are two very masculine energies, Aries and Aquarius. You have fire and air. Again, that intolerance for what you might consider BS is there. When the calling is what you said, it's like, well, no, we're breaking some paradigms here, right? So I think one of the things to really keep in mind with this solstice is that, and over the next 3 months, is that we are navigating uncharted territory.
Mhm,
Never in our lifetime have the aspects that we've spoken about been in connection to one another in these signs, in these configurations. We have no frame of reference. And so what that means is that it's I keep saying this, but it's such a significant calling back to self, right? How am I, and that hermit card, how do I feel about this? How am I contributing to this, right? How am I contributing to the light and the shadow? So, yeah, there's a lot there, and it's new. It's so new, it's so different. And here's another aspect that lets us know that Pluto in Aquarius is at a trine to Uranus and Taurus because Uranus and Taurus is currently at 29 degrees. That means that Uranus is about to go into Gemini, and Uranus going into Gemini, Uranus disrupts, Uranus breaks the pattern. It's like the shattering of the box in Gemini, our thoughts, how we think, how we see, how we process, how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive others, how we perceive the world. So there is like a mind like a 3 month mind blown period of time, and that can be overwhelming, right? So everything is being redefined. Everything is being redefined, which is why if we go back to the Sun Jupiter conjunction in Cancer, it's like, okay, well, what does my inner self tell me about what home is? There's so much about everything that's being redefined that we will find the answer to in our inner home, so that inner home becomes more reflected in our external reality.
mhm. When you said a 3-month mind, I thought you were gonna say because it does feel like a mind
It is.
if
Yes,
from out there because
right.
when we're redefining things, make sure that it's not being redefined for us in this, with Uranus being, things like the internet and information and that kind of stuff. We think we're so smart now, but we've lost all, our inner compass and our inner knowing. Our instincts are shot. We don't know about things. We are like a bunch of little ants that the powers that shouldn't be change one little set of parameters and we go, oh, Well, the obvious thing is to do this.
Right.
And and we don't think about it. We're on autopilot all the time. We're like, walking around with our thing going, oh, beep, beep. I mean,
Right.
if you're in a
Yep.
city, you don't even look anymore when it's time to cross the street. You just hear the little sound and you just go. So that energy is there, and we've got this two of swords, the head
Wow.
and heart. So yeah, it's interesting in this deck because
Mhm.
the person can't see and they've got
Mhm.
these birds chirping away and making a house in their head, in their thoughts. And that's quite often the way we are. Of this information is there. Well, it's obvious why. Well, because that's the way it's always been, or that's what everybody says, and everybody knows that, like, all of those things. So we are so programmed and conditioned to not think. And if we think we're thinking, we've probably been programmed to think that way.
Right.
So that's the type of thing that is required to break apart and to really give yourself permission to maybe have a brand new thought. Like,
Mhm.
what if everything I actually believed is only based on the evidence I've been allowed to see?
Which is so Gemini.
So here we have, yes, they're flying out all over the place. We have the Ace of Wands and we have the Five of Wands. So it's like,
Oh, wow.
what's so interesting about that, and I'll show you the third card in a second, is like, wow, I have this great idea. And then the Five of Wands is there with all of this, like, little arguments and little things of going, well, that's not acceptable and society says, but like that feels right, but all this evidence in front of me, the only evidence I can access says this, so I must be wrong, it must be this thing.
Yes.
Consensus says.
Yes.
FYI, the news, the media is not a public service.
Right. Right.
People forget that they are not public service announcements.
Right.
They have a bottom line. And then we have the Empress. So a
Mhm.
major arcana comes in to sort of
Mhm.
go, wait a minute now, stop all your petty little inner turmoil, your outer turmoil, your societal turmoil, and rise above to this place of receptivity, of creation, of feminine energy. And it's not, again, we talk a lot about masculine and feminine, and it's not like the patriarchy in the sense of men. It's the patriarchy in the sense of how a system was run with the
Right.
masculine energy, not males.
Right.
So it's not
Right.
demonizing men and favoring women. It's that energy of that balance that needs to take place. And so that Empress energy comes in to soften that extraction and burn it all down, or over mechanize things, or um, the capitalist system to the extreme, like exploitive, whatever. It softens that so that we can have this balance, so that this feeling of all the thoughts
Mhm.
are in
Mhm.
conflict with all the feelings,
Right.
and we tend to mix them up.
Right.
we
Right.
really we with all of our newfangled things, we still can't distinguish thoughts from feelings.
Right.
So
It's so true. It's yeah, there um I don't think I have any more to say on that. I mean, it's just and one aspect that I miss
mm,
to share with you, and I don't know if you want to pull cards for
sure.
that right now, but that Sun Jupiter conjunction in Cancer, which is the invitation to take a dive into the depths of the waters of our intuition, Cancer, the remembering that we carry Cancer and find wisdom there, Jupiter. is also at an in conjunction to Pluto in Aquarius. So that is, for those that don't know, an in conjunction, or a quincunx, as it's also known, is a 150-degree angle in the zodiac that is very uncomfortable. It is that what you just said, I don't know how to distinguish feelings from thoughts. And so here we have Pluto in Aquarius that can represent like technology, the force, the power, the shadow of technology, Pluto in Aquarius, and in conjunction, a very uncomfortable feeling to that Jupiter Sun conjunction in Cancer, which is a beautiful invitation within, and
Mhm.
find again the home within, the returning back to home to self. So we are battling these things. I think a great, very simple example about this is, I've been seeing on social media how Blackberries might make a comeback as a cell phone, right? Like the
Yeah.
Blackberry cell phone that was, right? Because it's not connected to like the internet in that way. It's not connected to social media. It's
Yeah.
just a phone. It's just a phone, right? There are ways where people are reclaiming their power back, which I think is great. And the biggest way that they are is from technology, which I think is beautiful. Because
Yeah.
great, great. You're answering the calling of your soul. Your soul is tired of feeling like the weight of being disconnected from you.
Well, we're being saved from ourselves again, from a thing outside of ourselves, because we don't have the capacity to do it ourselves. And it's like, well, I pulled a card for what you were just saying, and we have the Five of Wands again. And it's very interestingly depicted here that she is moving the little pieces around a chessboard,
Mhm.
all within there. This one only moves that way, this one only moves this way. There's only a set number of variables when I don't know all the moves, but if you're like a top chess player, it's this, this number, that thing did a whatever. Wh-
Like, what decisions are we making to come back to ourselves and learn what that looks like, sounds like, feel like within ourselves and our reality as we are a couple of steps ahead before technology becomes everything it's going to become,
Well, and the answer to that is, if you're gonna stay on the chessboard, all you have are the rules of the chess game.
right? Hmm.
So if you want to break free of that, you need to get off the blankety blank chessboard.
Right, right. So, speaking of thoughts and feelings, here we have Mercury and Cancer. Thoughts and feelings. Mercury and Cancer creating an exact trine at the time of the solstice to the North Node in Pisces, both at 22 degrees. So Mercury in Cancer is usually depicted in astrology as not the greatest placement for Mercury. Mercury, the planet of communication, cognitive thought, ideas, right? Um, the execution sometimes of those ideas. And in Cancer, well, it's not facts. It's not a list of things. It's not, it's water. It's how do I lean into actually the Sun Jupiter conjunction? How do I gain wisdom from within? And let that be what I communicate. The North Node, the North Node in Pisces is, and so if this Mercury is creating a trine to the North Node in Pisces, that means it's creating a sextile to the South Node in Virgo. So there is a remembering that's happening here. This is soul communication to self. This is soul, the nodes, communication to Mercury, the self, the mind. It is not going to come via internet. It's going to come with the hermit phase. It's going to come, how am I spending time? How am I like shutting the noise out? Who am I discovering myself to be when I am not defined by the noise? The North Node in Pisces is the spiritual journey there, the spiritual lesson there, North Node in Pisces, is how do I have compassion for collective suffering, or just the collective, understand that I am part of the collective suffering. Pisces has so much to do with suffering without becoming consumed by it.
Mhm.
So it can feel like there's a lack of clarity only because for, I don't know, about a decade now, we have found clarity outside of us.
Yeah.
People have done a really good job at putting like really great quotes and posts together, right? For us to be like, oh, that's the one. And I'm going to share it and send it to everyone, right?
The fact that the word Google has become a verb, I'm going to Google it, and
Right.
that's the truth. Yet you can't find a lot of answers on Google that Google doesn't want you to know.
Right.
You
And
can't
that's
find them there, so it's like, well, it's so easy, I will Google it. Boom, top 3 answers, and now we have AI in Google researching on our behalf, supposedly.
that, that. So there's so much here that will feel intangible in the way that we define things feeling tangible. But really, there's nothing more true or certain than what our soul is speaking. But we have to learn the language of our soul. And that requires hermit phases. So that's interesting.
So what's really interesting is that the card I pulled for this aspect is defined by the same card in the other deck.
Okay.
So the King of Wands, so
Mm,
he's full of bravado, he's cocky and charismatic. On the downside, he's cocky and charismatic. On the upside, he's cocky and charismatic. He can get things done. You know, he's full of creative ideas and pushes forth and is loud and boisterous and excites everybody and whatever. So it's clarified by the King of Wands. So
wow.
it reminds me of, and I might have mentioned this in these videos before, it was a couple of years ago. It was a little thing on Instagram, and you screen shoot this little video, and that's your message. And it said, um, if you think you've surrendered, surrender some more. And I
Mhm.
went, oh yeah, okay, whatever. And then I did it again. And then it said, when you think you've surrendered, surrender some more. I'm like, I just got this thing broken or whatever. I did it the third time. And then I'm like, I'm going to send it to my friend because I think this is broken. She gets a completely different thing. I come
Right.
back to it the fourth time. When you think you've fully surrendered, surrender some more. Like,
Right. Right.
okay, so I guess I didn't do the thing really.
Right.
And when we have this guy who goes forward, and look at, he's very posh and sophisticated and distinguished and all of those words, and he's got the drum and he's leading the people and all of that stuff. Where do we do that in our lives? Like, we can do that even spiritually and be like, go to all the retreats and do all the medicines and do the things, and yet we come back to, ayahuasca and do the, whatever, and we come back to our daily lives and we keep going through, then we take the manifesting courses and we do we come back and we're very unhappy because we've done all the things, and yet for some reason I have not graduated to the next
Right.
level,
Mhm.
because it's all of that without the inner part. The inner part isn't changing.
Mhm.
It's not like graduating high school. If you just show up and do all the tests and pass all the tests, you'll move on to the next level. It doesn't work that way
Mhm.
when it comes to self development. You actually need to change the things by doing things in a changed way. So, with that, depicted by that, we have the Eight of Swords, self imposed limiting beliefs. I
Mhm,
believe this is the reality, therefore I can't, if we go back to our where's our chess lady? Where has she gone? I don't know where the chessboard woman has gone. Oh, there she is. There she is. If I believe I'm in a chessboard, then I'm limited by the rules of the chessboard.
mm,
And
mhm,
that's what the Eight of Swords is. It's a limiting belief, a self imposed limiting belief. And we can tell ourselves that it's not self imposed. That's the way it is. It's not just that way for me, it's that way for everybody in the whole city, in the whole town, in the whole country, everybody who's, whatever. It's like, okay. And then we've got the Six of Swords. So the Six of Swords is actually the ability to let go of that shore and hop on a little boat and go to the other shore that we can't see yet. It's
mhm,
like to have the courage to like let go of that, go, maybe this isn't true for me anymore,
mhm,
but I
mhm.
don't know what is. But I'm willing to let this go. I'm willing to let the limiting beliefs go. Willing to let this character go
Mhm.
and maybe morph this character into another version of this charismatic masculine energy. Instead of bulldozing over everything, I'm going to create something.
Right,
So it's still fiery masculine energy, but with a different intention.
right,
So,
right. That different intention matters so much. So, we've been talking a lot about like these really big concepts, right? These just monumental changes that are happening already and they're just going to continue uh, to take place. How do we ground that? How do we ground that? In comes the earth energy, good old earth energy, always to help us make things feel a little bit more doable, sustainable. And what I really love is the moon is in Taurus at the time of the solstice. That matters, right? We have a solstice in Cancer. Cancer rules the moon, and the moon is in Taurus at the time of that. And it's creating an exact trine to Mars in Virgo.
mm,
So I love a good moon in Taurus. A moon in Taurus is let me just calm down for a second. Let's calm down for a second. Let's see what's actually happening. What's what? Who said what? W- How do I feel? Right? Have you eaten? Did you drink enough water? Right? There's something about a moon in Taurus that keeps us grounded in the middle of all of this that's happening. And what it calls for is how are you minding yourself? How are you taking care of yourself, right? Remember, Taurus is the sign of the senses, the
mm,
sign of, you know, um, feeling taken care of, right? Feeling and remember, both Cancer and Taurus in the zodiac are the signs that have to do with nurturance, that have to do with feeling cared for, taken care of, just in different ways. And so they are actually connected to one another. But in Taurus, it's are you, how are you minding your business? Mars in Virgo is I'm taking action on the day to day. I'm taking action for my daily routine. I'm taking action for the things that are my daily responsibilities. That's actually the thing that's going to ground you. Like, how are you connecting with your very real life and creating actually a spiritual connection? There is some kind of the word ritual has been coming up a lot as I read more and more of the energy, as I study more and more of the energy. It's ritual. How is your life your ritual? How do you become connected to your life, understanding that you're not just this human going through the motions, but that when you get up in the morning, when you make sure you do drink enough water, when you eat well, right? To nourish you, to sustain you, and understand how much all of that affects everything, right? Mars and Virgo, making sure that you're not depleting yourself with things that are unnecessary. That earth energy really brings you back to the present moment. It says, this is what matters. This is what matters. Because everything you and I have been talking about so far is going to happen anyway. It's
Yep.
already happening. A lot of it is out of our control. But what I love is the moon and Mars, which are more personal planets. It's a personal luminary with a personal planet says this is your life, that's your creation. Your life is your safe haven.
Hmm. Well, we've got our Empress showing up again,
Mm,
right? So that feminine energy, I'm not even going to repeat it, but it's that creation, gestation, passive receptivity.
mhm,
It's doing something without having to go this and this and this. Now,
mhm,
in it's also very like moon energy. To clarify that, we've got the King of Cups, which is a masculine nurturing energy.
mhm,
So it kind of combines both of those things. It's the king of water. So
mhm,
it's masculine and yet it's flowing. It can carve rocks over time just by flowing, just by moving, just by carrying. And then
mhm.
we've also got the Page of Swords, which is like, think of it like a guardian angel or, divine intervention or guidance from source kind of
Mhm.
energy. And then that can get translated through the high priestess, which is your intuition. And if you think, we have a hard time distinguishing between thought and feelings, what about intuition? Intuition often pops up in like fearful ways, and people think that's their intuition talking, but it's quite often thoughts surrounding fear. And then they get an emotional response because they're thinking about fear, so their body reacts, and then they go, "Oh, my emotions are telling me, my
Right.
intuition is telling me," but it's the thoughts. So keep in mind that to hone your intuition, if you can't connect to your third eye, connect to your solar plexus. Because
Mm,
that's the part of your body that knows if it's a yes or a no.
mhm, mhm.
Or muscle testing, if you get, you know, into that where you can actually trust your body to tell you something without interfering with your thoughts. So it is this like balance. It's quiet. All those cards are very kind of soft and quiet and in the background. And um, it's kind of like, it reminds me of, taking a flashlight out at night and going for a walk or looking at the bioluminescence or something. There's like some half hidden, half visible, only visible if you're looking at a certain time kind of
Mhm.
information. And that Empress with the King of Cups is a very mutable kind of energy. It's
Mhm.
grounded, but it's mutable. So it's like allow. It's there's a lot of allowing and not forcing anything, allowing for information to arrive, to
Right.
allow to be guided outside of your parameters, sort of thing.
And Virgo is a mutable sign. It's a mutable earth sign, right? So it's taking concrete action, right? Concrete Virgo, action Mars, but stay flexible in the approach, stay flexible in what comes through because Virgo is a feminine sign, but Mars there is the invitation to balance that masculine and feminine, right? So, yeah, to me, when I saw that, I was like, oh, we just have to mind our business. And minding our business again doesn't mean you ignore what's happening in the world or around you. No, I mind my life because it's precious, it's sacred. What I do on the day to day, how I connect with it, there's something there. That's what Virgo represents in the zodiac. It's recognizing the magic in the mundane.
Well, and it's, when you mentioned ritual, you think of practice, what is your practice? If the word ritual doesn't resonate,
Mhm.
like, how do you do your things? And in that Virgo context, it could be OCD that
Right.
becomes very rigid of like, it has to be this, and at this time I do. That's not what we're saying. It's like, if you're trying to change things, then, sticking with a practice, not a theory, but an actual practice of
Mhm.
changing the time you wake up, changing your diet, having more water, or changing the time of day that you drink the water, doing a little bit of exercise, walking to the thing instead of driving to the thing, in order to actually, we can't, like, the saying, nothing changes if nothing changes,
Right.
is kind
Right.
of how I interpret that ritual of create something. It's, just taking a class is very much in that pill popping kind of, I'll just take a pill for it
Right. Right. If we're talking about earlier, we talked about like the building of a new foundation of this new, era
era.
that we're entering. The life that we create is in the day, it's in our daily habits. That's what Mars and Virgo represent. And the moon in Taurus tells is a reminder of, do you believe yourself worthy of, right? Like v- am, am I do I feel that am I valuable, worthy enough of committing to this? There is a certain level of commitment. It happens on the day to day, right? Self responsibility, Saturn and Aries, all of these things matter. So it's not just like, oh, we're going through a massive awakening and having breakthroughs. No, like your life is an invitation to create. And that doesn't mean you write a book. That doesn't mean you have to show your face on camera. That doesn't mean you have to do anything other than create a life that sustains you in every way because you're being mindful of it, because you're being present in it, because you're asking yourself, um, what does any of what I have actually mean to me? And there is something about the elimination of excess when it
Mhm.
comes to these two earth signs coming together.
Yeah, and that's kind of been a little bit of a background theme in there too, because we've had all of these abundance related cards showing up, but it's to put it in context of, I have everything I need. I have all of my own validation. I am worthy because I make myself worthy.
Right.
it's not external.
Yes,
If you do all those little things every day, I
mhm,
guarantee you will be very satisfied with yourself.
absolutely.
You just feel good that you've done those things for you. And it's
Yep.
not, when we just say the words, be like, well, I do everything for myself. That sounds very egotistical and self-important. But again, it's sort of taking these things and shifting the context,
Right.
shifting what abundance means, shifting what taking action means, shifting. It's a little tweaking. It's moving something. I remember seeing, it was a square, and you say, what does this look like? Person A sees it as a square, and then there's a circle, and person B says, well, it's a circle. And it was a question of perspective, because it was actually a cylinder. So if you see a cylinder on its side, it's a square, and
Right.
if you see the cylinder on the end, so it's a matter of perspective, that both are actually true and not entirely true.
Right.
And
Right.
and I think we forget that in our daily lives and how we see ourselves, how we act, how we see
Right.
other people act, what other people say. People
Yeah.
ruminate on things,
Mhm.
why did that person say that thing? Why did they say that thing to me? Or,
Right.
that person must be horrible because they mentioned that they voted for so and so and I hate so and so. And then all of a sudden, the 2,000 things wonderful that the person does is out the window because of one little potential thing,
Mhm.
you know.
Mm. Yeah. This calls for a lot of, again, personal responsibility, a lot of self-reflection. And that moon in Taurus actually creates an exact square to Pluto in Aquarius. Maybe not exact, they're 1 degree apart. It's a very tight square. So, all of the things we have been saying, everyone is going to have a very strong feeling about it. Everyone's going to feel very strongly about everything. Moon square Pluto, on the one hand, lends itself through for so much wisdom that comes from the hard times, the shadow, deaths and rebirths, transformations. It really is, there's a gift there if we learn to see the gift in it, right? Otherwise,
Mhm.
it's you have two very sensitive planetary bodies connecting in a harsh aspect in fixed signs. The lower expression of a moon in Taurus says, nope, this is what I believe, this is what I think, and that's all there is. That's all there is to it. The square to Pluto in Aquarius, well, if you don't like it, well, you don't have to be, you like, that's it. I'm done with you. That's a lot. I don't know. I don't know, that's going to be according to everyone's level of consciousness.
Yeah. I would say the little piece of advice for that is just because you think it or feel it doesn't mean you need to share that information with anybody else. You can actually keep it to yourself. We can actually have our own little thoughts and things and go like, everything as small as, why is she wearing that with that?
Right.
Who- we have those thoughts. You can just share those with your best friend, you just with a little glance, and it's your own private little thing. Do that with everything during that time period. So
Mhm.
I've got the Queen of Wands there, which is the equivalent to this guy. Creative, fiery, manifesting, bold, charismatic, all those things. On the negative side, it can be too in your face.
Mhm.
It doesn't
Mm.
have to be. It could just be inspiring. Stop right there at inspiring instead of, passive aggressive or, all of that overly flamboyant energy. And then we've got justice, we've got the Three of Wands, and we have the Lovers. So it's our sense of justice, our sense of right and wrong. Not it's like the circle and the square
Right.
and the cylinder. It's not so clear cut. It's
Right.
like I was recalling the other day when marijuana became illegal in
Mhm.
Canada. And I remember prior to that, my mother was very opposed to it because it was illegal. Very opposed. Terrible. Anyways, the day it became legal, her viewpoint entirely changed because it was
Wow.
legal.
Yeah.
But nothing actually changed
Right. Right.
other than that one little aspect. And
Mhm.
so the sense of right and wrong,
Mhm.
everything that is legal is not necessarily ethical.
Mhm.
And you could take this across so many different subjects
Mhm.
and, vice versa. And then, so then we have this Three of Wands. The Three of Wands is sort of, again, cautioning you. Okay, so bite your tongue. Think, feel, sense, whatever, and keep it to yourself. And the Three of Wands is like, plan a little bit. Think ahead. Think,
Mhm.
is this still going to bother me in 3 weeks?
Hmm.
Is this
Mhm.
still going to impact me in 3 weeks? Is this still going to be a situation? And if yes, if it's really strong, then what can I actually do about it rather than create some kind of confrontational experience? What can I do? This is the lovers. This is like how to join, how to connect, how to have a shared vision
Mhm.
instead of forcing somebody to either you're here with me or I don't need you in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're never going to connect anybody with that kind of attitude.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a very interesting layered. I think everything gets flipped on its head, and we have to allow it to flip, be open to it, going, well, that's great, it'll all happen out there, but it's not going to happen in here. That's going to cause a lot of internal friction, I think,
Mhm.
holding on to those things.
Yes, yes. And it's going to keep you from that trine, that earth trine between the moon and Mars, which is, can we come back? Can you come back to your life? Can you come back to what's today, this moment asking of you right now? Right? Instead of, getting consumed by what you're getting consumed by.
Yeah.
And so here is where this, I just realized that we might be ending on this, but so Mars in Virgo is
Hmm.
in a yod, right? To Pluto in Aquarius and the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries. So, what is a yod? A yod kind of looks like a cone. We have Mars and Virgo on top, 150 degree angle to Pluto in Aquarius, 150-degree angle to Saturn Neptune conjunction. Yods are uncomfortable. Yods are this feeling but of feeling very conflicted. Um, because here we have Mars and Virgo. Okay, so I tend to my day, I tend to my tasks, right? It's a great placement for focus. This is what I want to focus on. This is what I want to create. This is where I want to place my energy, my action. Okay. But then there's an in conjunction to Pluto in Aquarius. To me, that can be a few things. One, I have this intention to place my attention to remain committed to some kind of structure to this thing, but the in conjunction to Pluto and Aquarius is, but I've never done this before. This feels too big. What if I'm doing it wrong? This is too new for me, right? On the other hand, is getting distracted by everything and anything. Then we have the in conjunction from that Mars in Virgo to the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries. It's this requires more time than I thought it would. That makes me uncomfortable. This requires more commitment than I thought it would. I didn't realize it was going to take this much. There is Mars and Virgo asks you to commit to the step by step little things. The in conjunction to Saturn is, I don't know that I like this amount of responsibility. I don't know, right? This is new. So, this element of newness can become so big that we go into the lower expression of Mars and Virgo, which is analysis paralysis. And then we're just like, I don't want to do this because of 100 million different reasons.
Yeah, inconvenience or discomfort is no reason not to do something.
Right, right,
It
right,
could be a reason if the original reason to do it was not so good.
right.
But there's a lot of really good things that are uncomfortable, inconvenient,
Mhm.
untimely, you know, arduous, painful, all of those things. It doesn't equate to this is something I shouldn't be doing.
Right. Well, here's the thing, right? So Mars is finally out of that Cancer Leo energy that it has been in for like 9 months because it retrograded and it was Cancer and Leo for a very long time. So, what to take action towards, it's not that we don't know where to put our energy and attention. It's not that we don't know. By the time that is in Virgo, it's, oh, we know. What we don't realize is that we have to build the muscle, right? At first, it's going to feel uncomfortable, but you know what to do.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Well, we ended the last one with the lovers, and we've got the lovers here. And it's very cute because they've got elements of each other within them, although they're very different.
Right.
So
Yes.
it's, committed. There's a lot of thought and feeling and groundedness and heart chakra energy in connection with this. So, where your ideas and your heart and your soul align, that is where you go. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter what the other things are, you just have to tend to them. So there's our three of swords, all of our aches and pains and sorrow and wounds and past wounds. And the last time I felt this uncomfortable, it was really bad because all these bad things happened. The stories we tell ourselves. And the Page of Cups is, it goes back to that probably childhood programming, in fact.
Mhm.
So that Three of
Mhm.
Swords, all of our wounds, all of our sorrow, back to early, the first 7 years of life. And the Knight of Swords, this is the knight that is pretty clear. It doesn't pay attention to the periphery. It just goes, it goes, it goes, it goes. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, there's stuff there, whatever.
Mhm.
I'm going this way. And it's not to be dismissive or paying attention to detail, those kinds of things. Like, yes, you should pay attention to detail, but in this direction, not any of that stuff.
Right.
And I heard something earlier today, and I wish I knew who it was. You're watching YouTube videos and you get interrupted with an ad for something, and I was in the middle of making my sourdough, so I couldn't run over and hit skip. So I was actually listening, but I couldn't tell who it was. And the guy was talking about how we distract ourselves from those big goals with a bunch of BS.
Mhm.
And it usually comes down to, we get very clever with how we do that. And I've noticed this, and you've probably noticed this. And we get very, very smart in how we um, give ourselves permission to procrastinate because we're doing something and we over apply ourselves in a certain area that keeps us from that thing. And whenever we find ourselves doing this, that is us being attached to that childhood programmed
Yep.
person who believes that the current reality is the only reality for us. And so, even though periodically we can be successful in that other identity, it's not sustainable until we actually let go of this distracting, procrastinating, clever procrastinating, as the case may be, to doing that other thing. So it's, yes, the Knight of Swords charging forward with blinders on a little bit, just
Mhm.
paying attention to the road in front of you. Never mind all the other stuff.
Mhm.
So sometimes, in a practical sense, that could be, well, I want to do this thing, whatever it is. Let's say it was writing a book and this is what I want to do. But then
Right.
all of a sudden you're going to do the house reno, and the rearranging of the laundry room, and
Right.
all these things need to be done. And if
Right.
you're a really powerful manifester, you will create problems that seem to be beyond your control that need your attention.
Mhm.
So you
Mhm.
can't possibly take responsibility for not doing them, and cannot possibly do that other thing that you were supposed to be doing because you wanted to do it.
Yeah. That's so genius because our minds are very clever in that way. How did I end up here? How why does what's the word I'm looking for? The quintessential, why does this keep happening to me? Right? With
Yes.
every single step of the way, it's because your actions and your thoughts have been the same.
And
So
the belief that really,
right,
I really don't believe I'm that person. Deep down, I still believe I'm this person, no matter
and
what I do.
Mars and Virgo through its trajectory, through July and into August is going to show you how your daily actions, Mars and Virgo, are creating your reality, your external reality. And it is that, and there's a gift in that.
Mhm.
Because you get to see who you don't think you are, right? One of the things I've said about Saturn and Aries is that Saturn and Aries is not a coddling energy. Saturn and
Mhm.
Aries is tough love because it brings the responsibility back to self. So the quintessential, how do I keep finding myself in this situation?
I
Right?
swear I didn't do anything to bring it
Right.
on.
Right. Saturn and Aries, self responsibility, because chances are that at this point, with everything that has happened, people around you are like, "What do you mean? You did the same thing.
Mhm.
How do I keep ending up in relationships like this? What do you mean? What is the hard thing that you know you have to do that you're not doing?" And that's not just in relationships, that's just in everything.
Yeah.
And that's for all of us in different parts of our lives. Like we are all coming face to face with these things about ourselves that our soul is ready to outgrow. And that's where this comes from. So I'm not saying this from a place of judgment. No, like this is all of us.
Mhm.
And so this growth is uncomfortable.
Yeah, when you think of growth other than, having a growth spurt at some point in time, but when you were a kid and you were growing,
Mhm.
like from, age 5 to 7, let's say, and all of a sudden you noticed, your jeans were too short, or you couldn't close them, or your sleeves were way up, or you went to put on your whatever, and it was like, oh, it's
Mhm.
like that's what growth should feel like, that when you're doing these things every day, that over
Right.
time you've changed.
Right.
You can't go back because you've grown. Like you're just not the same anymore. And it should become automatic.
Right. And think about I think there's so much about what we focus on that is like an underlying theme for the next 3 months
Mhm.
at least. As we look at the Cancer solstice chart, it's what are you focusing on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And the negative side of that is probably things like ruminating, or missed opportunities, or getting caught up in some negative thing somebody said, or things that are going on. So shift that focus into what I can do, and it
Mhm.
might all be in here, and that's it. But yes, you will grow.
Yes. Yes.
I focus on cooking, and I hope I don't grow sideways. So
Right, right. Yeah, it's a solstice unlike any other, truthfully.
This is true. Yes.
Mhm,
Yes. And
and
it's a time of illumination. And speaking of that, maybe I will close out with a couple of runes for this because it
oh,
makes me
let's.
think of, well, I'm not going to say it now. I'll just pull the rune and see what comes out. So, okay, we have Rado. I'll pull three. Well, that's lovely. That's Wunjo. That's the middle one. This is awesome. I got goosebumps. So the first one, this is going to be really hard to see, but it's the R. It looks like a letter R, our letter R. Is movement, is forward movement. It's like just taking those steps, those very mundane steps. If you just keep taking them, you will find yourself in a different place.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, this one looks like a P. You can see that there's no little point on top. So Wunjo is joy.
Okay.
And so this is in the
Oh,
present. And
yeah.
then we have, this is probably the clearest one, ing. Sometimes it's just depicted by the middle diamond. There's no negative way of viewing that rune. And it's literally a portal. So we are entering a new phase. So let's keep taking the steps, be filled with joy, and go through the portal. You will find yourself in a different place.
Mhm, mhm.
Ah,
Whew. Yeah.
yes. Well, there you have it. And then we will be doing a July. We'll be getting back on track. So talk about doing things in a new way to have a new outcome. We had a little chat before doing this and thought, we could actually record the month's aspects and cards before the month instead of waiting to the last minute and then missing it. So that's
Right.
what we're going to do.
Better habits, right? Better
there,
habits.
there you
Where's
go.
the Virgo? Yeah, yeah. So this was so much fun. I always have so much fun recording these with you. I'm glad we're back. I hope
Yes.
you all enjoy this. You know, Susheela and I like to philosophize and go into the nitty-gritty of it all. I mean, why not?
Why not? It's
How
called deep.
could you not?
It's a deep dive. That's what
Right.
you get. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
yeah,
you all
thanks.
so, so much. Do you have anything going on? Are you preparing anything? Offering anything?
Um, well, we are physically doing a lot here where I live in BC. We are trying to establish a nonprofit that's land-based healing, land-based learning, traditional skills, and things like that. So um, that's kind of my focus at the moment, and it's June, so it's gardening season and all those kinds of things. There's a big focus on food security and food sovereignty and connecting growers and eaters together. So it's a very in-person kind of uh, endeavor.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That sounds amazing. I love that. Yeah. Um, I am not offering anything new. The summer's just getting started. Probably more stuff. I'm working on stuff behind the scenes. More stuff will come in the fall, but as always, readings and coaching, I'm available for that. But yeah,
So, yeah.
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 Well, thank you all so, so much. We will see you in a few weeks. Thanks so much, Sushila.
We promise.
Yeah.
All right.